Hey, everybody, and welcome to this deep dive. You know how sometimes you feel like you're the only one going through something?
Mm-hmm.
Well, today, we're going to be looking at the normal distribution and how that concept suggests that that's really statistically improbable.
Interesting.
And we're going to connect that to some human behaviors, and we'll even get into things like depression.
Okay.
So get ready for some real aha moments.
Sounds good. So the normal distribution, it's really incredible how this concept that we all kind of know, that bell curve,
Right.
it pops up in so many places that you wouldn't expect. And we tend to associate it with height and weight and physical attributes, but it goes way beyond that.
Yeah.
It really does.
It really does. And actually, the sources that we were looking at for today's deep dive suggest that even emotions,
Huh.
which are, such a personal thing,
Right.
they also follow a normal distribution.
Wow.
So think about it. Like, if you are feeling down right now,
Mm.
statistically speaking, probably about 14% of the world's population is feeling the same way.
That's a powerful realization.
Yeah.
It makes you feel a little less alone.
Yeah. And maybe, less crazy for feeling that way.
Absolutely. It really underscores the idea that you're not alone in your experiences, even the difficult ones.
Right.
And it kind of leads us to this question,
Yeah.
what contributes to those negative emotions?
Yeah.
And how can we, work with them in an effective way?
Right. And so that kind of leads us to,
Hmm.
this concept of control, right?
Yeah.
Our source really dives deep into this idea, suggesting that, lack of control can be a significant factor in, developing depression.
Absolutely. And it goes all the way back to when we're infants.
Oh, wow.
Remember those basic human needs, those 6 basic human needs?
Oh, yeah.
Survival, love, power, freedom, play, learning. We're driven by these things,
Yeah.
from infancy.
Right. Yeah.
We're hardwired.
Hardwired for that. And what's so fascinating is how infants learn to get their needs met.
Yeah.
Crying anger, these are their primary tools for influencing their environment.
Exactly. For a baby, those behaviors are really their way of exerting control.
Oh.
When they cry, someone feeds them.
Right.
When they're angry, someone pays attention.
It's their first little taste of
their first taste of agency.
like a tiny human's power move.
Exactly.
But then, here's where things get interesting. What happens when those early strategies for control don't really translate well into adulthood?
Yeah, that's a crucial point.
Yeah.
As we mature, those basic needs remain,
Right.
But the ways we try to fulfill them, they become much more complex.
Right.
And if we haven't developed those healthy coping mechanisms,
Uh-huh.
and we continue to rely on those very early strategies,
Mm-hmm.
we may experience frustration, a sense of helplessness.
So a baby throwing a tantrum is one thing, but, a grown-up throwing a tantrum,
Right, not the best way.
not really going to fly.
Exactly. And when those attempts to control our environment, they fail,
Mm-hmm.
we start feeling powerless.
Yeah.
And that can contribute to, feelings of depression.
Yeah.
But the good news is we're not stuck
That's good.
with those early patterns.
Right.
We can evolve.
Okay, phew.
Yeah.
So, and that's where, our source's breakdown of behavior
Yeah.
into those 4 components becomes so important.
Yes.
Acting, thinking, feeling, and physiology.
Yes, absolutely. It really provides a framework for understanding how we can gain control even in those challenging situations.
Okay.
And, we may not have direct control over our feelings
Right.
and our physiology, but we do have control over our actions and our thoughts.
Okay, so we can change our actions and thoughts,
Yeah.
and that then can indirectly influence those other 2 components.
Precisely. You can't force yourself to feel happy,
Right.
but you can choose to go for a walk or engage in a hobby that you enjoy
Right.
or challenge a negative thought pattern.
Yeah.
And these actions, they may seem small,
Right.
but they can create a ripple effect,
Wow.
ultimately influencing your emotional state and even your physical well-being.
So it's like this domino effect.
It's it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we've got control over actions and thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
and we can kind of hack the system to feel better.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay. Yeah, it's like we're taking back the reins,
Right.
shifting from being passive recipients of our emotions to, being these active participants in shaping our well-being.
Yeah, and shaping how we feel.
Absolutely.
That makes so much sense. But how does this tie back to the normal distribution?
Right.
And the idea that, statistically speaking, so many people are experiencing, these negative emotions.
Well, that's a great question. Remember that statistic about 14% of people experiencing these negative emotions at any given time?
Yeah.
Well, if those emotions are partly influenced by our sense of control,
Right.
and we all fall somewhere on that bell curve
Yeah.
of control, it stands to reason that a certain percentage of us are gonna struggle
Right.
with, those feelings of helplessness and depression.
So it's not just like about individual circumstances, like
Yeah.
where we fall on that like spectrum of control.
Precisely. Some people might naturally have a stronger sense of control,
Right.
while others, may struggle more.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Right.
The point is to kind of recognize that we're all somewhere on that spectrum
Uh-huh.
and to focus on, what we can do to move toward a greater sense of agency,
Yeah.
regardless of where we're starting.
Right. So like we're all in this together,
Yeah.
navigating this complex interplay between like, our innate needs and our early experiences and like our ability to adapt and evolve.
Exactly. And the more we understand these underlying factors,
Right.
the more empowered we become
Yeah.
to create positive change
I like that.
in our lives. It's not about, denying those negative emotions,
Right.
but it's more about understanding their nature
Yeah.
and how we can choose to respond to them.
So speaking of responding, let's kind of dive back into those 4 components of behavior. Like
Totally.
you mentioned that, we have direct control over our actions and thoughts.
Yes.
But like how does that actually translate into,
Mm.
managing something as complex as, depression?
Well, think of it this way.
Okay.
Each component influences the others.
Okay.
So let's say you're feeling down.
Hmm.
That's the feeling component.
Right.
You might start thinking negative thoughts.
Right.
That's the thinking component.
Right.
Those thoughts might lead to withdrawing from activities that you enjoy.
Yeah.
That's the acting component.
Right.
And all of this can then have a physiological impact.
Yeah.
Maybe you feel fatigued or experience changes in sleep patterns.
So it kind of becomes like a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
But if we can kind of interrupt that cycle by
Right.
like changing our actions or our thoughts.
Exactly. You can choose to engage in activities that bring you joy, even if you don't feel like it initially.
Huh?
You can challenge those negative thoughts,
Right.
replace them with more positive or realistic ones.
Yeah.
And as you start to change those actions and those thoughts,
And the feelings and physiology start to shift as well.
Exactly. It's like we're kind of hacking the system from the
Yeah.
inside out.
I like that.
Yeah.
So we can really take control.
Yes. It's about recognizing that we have more agency
Yeah.
than we realize.
Right.
And the beauty of this framework is that, this applies to so much more than just managing depression.
Right.
This is a tool for understanding human behavior in general.
So whether we're talking about, overcoming challenges or
Right.
achieving goals or just navigating the ups and downs of daily life,
Absolutely.
like understanding these 4 components
Yeah,
can help us make, more conscious choices.
absolutely. It's about moving from a place of reactivity
Right.
to a place of intentionality,
Yeah.
recognizing that we have the power to shape our own experiences.
That's awesome. This has been so insightful.
Good.
It really connects back to, that initial idea of the normal distribution.
Like knowing that those negative emotions are part of the human experience,
Mm-hmm.
that we all fall somewhere on that spectrum of control.
Yeah.
It can really help us feel, less alone
Yes. Less alone.
in our struggles.
And more importantly, it gives us a framework for understanding
Mm-hmm.
how we can move towards a greater sense of control
Right.
and well-being. It's
Yeah.
not about, achieving some perfect state of happiness. It's
Right.
about developing those skills and awareness
Right.
to navigate the inevitable challenges that life throws our way.
I love that. It's about like embracing the full spectrum of human experience,
Exactly.
but while also recognizing, our ability to choose how we respond and how we grow,
Yeah.
and ultimately how we shape our own lives.
Exactly. And that's a powerful message.
Yeah.
Of hope and resilience.
I like that.
Yeah.
Well, before we get too philosophical,
Okay.
let's bring it back to our listener.
Okay.
We've explored a lot of kind of complex ideas today.
We have.
But like, what does it all mean for them?
Yeah.
In their everyday life. Okay, so let's recap a little bit.
Right.
We've covered the normal distribution and like how it applies to everything, from like physical traits to our emotions.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about how our need for control kind of develops, from infancy.
Right.
And how a lack of control can really contribute to, negative emotions like depression.
Absolutely.
And I think most importantly, we explored, those 4 components of behavior:
Yes.
acting, thinking, feeling, and physiology.
Mm-hmm.
And we highlighted how, understanding these components and focusing on what we can control,
Right.
our actions and thoughts, can help us, shift those feelings and create some positive change.
It's really about empowerment, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like we've given you this like secret decoder ring for understanding human behavior.
Exactly.
But the real magic happens when you start applying this knowledge to your own life.
Right.
So let's talk about you for a second.
Okay.
Think about a time when you felt like really overwhelmed or like stuck in this negative emotional spiral. Maybe you were facing, a challenge at work or dealing with a difficult relationship or feeling the weight of everyday life.
Sure.
How could you have maybe applied this framework of the 4 components to like navigate that situation differently?
That's a good question.
Could you have shifted your actions even just a little bit?
Yeah.
Like maybe take a break, go for a walk,
Yeah.
reach out to a friend?
All good strategies.
Or could you have challenged like those negative thoughts that were kind of swirling around in your mind?
Mm-hmm.
And I tried to replace them with, something a bit more positive or realistic.
Absolutely.
Remember, even those small shifts in our actions and our thoughts can have like a ripple effect.
Yeah, they do.
And that can influence our feelings and our physiology.
It's true.
So it's like we've handed you this toolbox
Right.
filled with all these powerful instruments for navigating the ups and downs of life.
Love it.
And the best part is you get to choose which tools to use
Exactly.
and how to apply them to your unique circumstances.
It's all about personal agency.
So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, we really want to encourage you to stay curious. Keep exploring these ideas.
Yes, and don't forget, you're not alone in this journey.
Right, we're all on that bell curve somewhere.
We are.
Just navigating the complexities of human behavior and trying to live fulfilling lives.
Right.
And that's kind of the beauty of it all, isn't it?
It is.
We have the power to understand ourselves, to make conscious choices, and to shape our own experiences.
Absolutely.
So keep those aha moments coming. And until next time, stay curious.